Let's talk about something we all crave, but few of us are truly taught to recognize: emotionally available love. Not the butterflies, not the games, not someone who texts you good morning but disappears the second you need real connection. I'm talking about love that shows up, stays, builds, the kind that doesn't just flirt with the idea of being there for you, it proves it consistently. So what does it actually look like? Looks like someone who doesn't vanish the moment things get real. They don't only show up on Friday nights when it's fun, they show up on Monday morning when you're stressed and vulnerable and not at your best. Consistency isn't boring, it's the backbone of real love. It's someone who makes you feel like your feelings are safe in their hands. They don't mock your emotions or change a subject when things get deep. They lean in, they listen. You never have to wonder if you're too much. Emotionally available love isn't just about hearing "I'm sorry," it's about seeing "I'll do better." They don't dismiss the things that hurt you, they care about how their actions impact you, and they do something about it. It's someone who doesn't panic when you ask where things are going. You don't have to decode vague messages or live in the limbo of, let's just see what happens. They plan, they include you, they talk about a shared future, not a solo one with occasional cameos from you. Conflict will happen, but emotionally available people don't treat it like war. They don't need to win, they want to understand. They fight with you, not against you. And finally, it's not performative. They don't treat love like a job interview, trying to impress you with highlight reels. They show up as them, flaws, fears, and all, and invite you to do the same. That's what emotionally available love looks like. It's brave, it's present, and it's patient enough to grow something real. Don't settle for love that only touches the surface. You deserve someone who dives deep and invites you to dive with them. One of the clearest signs of emotionally available love is consistency. It's not flashy, it's not always exciting, but it's reliable. And in the world of healthy relationships, reliability is romantic. When someone is emotionally available, you don't feel like you have to guess where you stand with them. They don't go hot and cold based on their mood or convenience. They don't suddenly disappear when things get stressful or when vulnerability creeps in. Instead, they're steady. They show up for you in a way that says, "You matter to me," even when it's not easy or exciting. Consistency isn't about being perfect, it's about being dependable. You can count on them to follow through with what they say. If they say they'll call, they call. If they say they want to see you, they make the plan. Emotionally unavailable people often live in the realm of potential. They have sweet words, lofty ideas, and grand intentions, but nothing really sticks. With someone emotionally available, there's alignment between their words and their action. You're not left wondering what today's version of them you'll get because they bring the same emotional presence every time. What often gets misunderstood is that inconsistency isn't just confusing, it's anxiety-inducing. When love becomes a guessing game, it pulls you out of your own center. You find yourself on edge, overanalyzing texts, trying to predict their next move, blaming yourself for their silence. That's not love. That's emotional instability masquerading as passion. Emotionally available love brings the opposite experience. It grounds you. You can exhale around them. You can trust that their presence isn't just for the good times or when they're in the mood for attention. They're there because they want to build something real and they're willing to invest the time, energy, and emotional labor to do it. And here's the quiet power of consistency. It gives your nervous system a break. You're not in a constant state of waiting, performing, or earning love. You're in a state of receiving it regularly, calmly, and securely. This kind of consistency doesn't just create comfort, it creates safety. And safety is the foundation of intimacy. Real love doesn't show up once a week and expect full access to your heart. It shows up again and again, not for perfection, but for presence. That's when you know it's real. When someone chooses to stay emotionally engaged, even when it's hard, uncomfortable, or inconvenient, in emotionally unavailable dynamics, there's often a quiet pressure to perform. You find yourself carefully curating your words, walking on eggshells and filtering your emotions so you don't come across as too needy or too intense. That's not connection. That's survival mode dressed up as dating. But emotionally available love flips that script. With the right person, you don't feel like you're on trial every time you open up. You don't worry that your truth might scare them off. Instead, you feel safe to express even when your feelings are messy, vulnerable, or uncertain. Emotional safety is created when someone listens without defensiveness, responds without judgment, and shows up without needing you to package yourself in a certain way to keep their interest. It's subtle but powerful. You can tell them what's really going on in your mind without rehearsing it first. You can be in a bad mood, have a bad day, or bring up a concern, and they don't punish you emotionally for it. They don't twist your words or shut down the conversation because it makes them uncomfortable. They invite you in because they're not afraid of emotional depth. They welcome it. Emotionally available people aren't looking for a performance, they're looking for a partner. They don't need you to impress them with your achievements, your confidence, or how well you seem to have it all together. In fact, they often connect more deeply when you reveal the parts of you that aren't polished. They respect your honesty more than your highlight reel. That's because they're secure enough in themselves that your vulnerability doesn't threaten them. It actually brings them closer. When someone is emotionally available, they understand that emotional intimacy is built through truth, not perfection. This kind of love creates a space where your authenticity is not only accepted, it's appreciated. You don't have to translate your feelings or make them smaller to protect the other person's ego. You can speak openly about your needs, your fears, and your desires. And instead of them shutting down, they lean in with curiosity. It doesn't mean they'll always agree with you, but they'll hear you. And that matters. So it's in these moments of safe expression that real love takes root. Because when you stop performing and start expressing, you finally give yourself the chance to be loved for who you really are. In emotionally immature relationships, apologies can start to feel like empty words. You hear the classic lines, "I'm sorry you feel that way," or "that wasn't my intention," but the behavior doesn't actually change. Over time, that kind of apology becomes exhausting, even insulting. It's like putting a bandage on a wound they keep reopening. But in emotionally available love, an apology is more than a sentence, it's a shift. It's not just a recognition of pain, but a commitment to prevent it in the future. The real apology happens in what they do after they say, "I'm sorry." Emotionally available people take ownership. They don't get defensive when you express that something hurt you. They get curious. They want to understand, not dismiss. They see feedback not as an attack, but as an opportunity to grow closer and improve the relationship. When someone truly values you and the connection you're building, your discomfort matters to them, not because they want to avoid guilt, but because they genuinely care about your experience. They listen not to defend themselves, but to understand where they missed the mark, and then they take action to course correct. What sets emotionally available love apart is accountability. You don't have to keep repeating yourself. You don't have to beg for the same need to be met over and over again. When you say, "Hey, when you do that, it makes me feel invisible," they hear you, and the next time, they act differently. Not perfectly, not instantly, but noticeably. They demonstrate that your feelings have weight, and that the relationship is a space where growth, not just comfort, is prioritized. That kind of effort makes you feel seen, valued, and respected because you're not just asking to be heard, you're being honored in their actions. Adjusting doesn't mean becoming someone else. It means evolving out of love, not obligation. Emotionally available partners aren't afraid of this kind of evolution because they're not just trying to keep you, They're trying to care for you in a meaningful way. They don't weaponize your feedback or turn it into a guilt trip. They use it as a mirror, not a burden. And this is key. Change born from emotional availability doesn't feel forced. It feels loving. It's not about fixing every flaw. It's about showing up differently with more care because they want to grow with you, not just get away with things. Emotionally available love doesn't live in the gray area of we'll see. It's not built on vague timelines, half answers, or empty phrases like, I'm just going with the flow right now. That kind of language is usually a way to avoid commitment while still reaping the benefits of intimacy. In contrast, someone who is emotionally available doesn't just avoid the future, they invite it. They bring you into their plans not as an afterthought, but as someone they're seriously considering. There's no sense that your presence in their life is conditional or temporary. Instead, they express both directly and through action that they see you as part of what's next. When someone is emotionally open and invested, the future stops feeling like a forbidden topic. You don't have to tiptoe around words like commitment, relationship, or long-term. You don't have to fear that mentioning your needs or timeline will scare them off. In fact, they initiate those conversations. They ask you what you want. They care about where you're headed, and they start aligning their path with yours. Not in a way that overwhelms or rushes things, but in a way that shows intentionality. Their clarity becomes a source of security because it reassures you that you're not building something alone. Now, this doesn't mean they have every step of life mapped out or that they're ready to pick out curtains after the second date, but it does mean they're emotionally mature enough to acknowledge the direction of the relationship, and they don't act allergic to the idea of building something long-term. You don't feel like you're in limbo or competing with their lifestyle, their freedom, or their fear of being tied down. You feel chosen, you feel like a priority, and more importantly, you feel invited into the next chapter instead of constantly questioning if there even is one. People who are emotionally unavailable will often enjoy your company, but leave you dangling when it comes to clarity. They might even use time as a tool, asking you to be patient or trust the process, while avoiding any real discussion of direction. But emotionally available love doesn't hide behind delay tactics. It moves forward, even if slowly, with transparency and shared vision. You're not left building castles in the sky, hoping they'll catch up. Building right alongside you, not just talking about the future, but actively making space for you in it. In emotionally unavailable relationships, conflict often feels like a battle, something to be won, avoided, or manipulated. It's either an explosion or a shutdown. You raise a concern, and suddenly you're met with defensiveness, sarcasm, or silence. But in emotionally available love, conflict doesn't feel like an attack, it feels like a conversation. The goal isn't to defeat the other person, it's to understand them. An emotionally present partner doesn't panic when tension arises. They lean in with curiosity. They ask, help me understand what you're feeling, instead of trying to prove you wrong. Curiosity changes everything. It shifts the energy from who's to blame to what's really going on here. When someone approaches conflict with openness, they're not trying to protect their ego, they're trying to protect the relationship. They understand that disagreement isn't a sign of failure, it's a chance to grow closer by learning something new about each other. Emotionally available love doesn't treat arguments like a threat to intimacy, it uses them as a doorway to deeper connection. That means listening without interrupting, validating without needing to agree, and staying present even when emotions run high. A person who's emotionally available doesn't weaponize your vulnerability during conflict. They don't keep score, twist your words, or bring up your past mistakes just to win the moment. Instead, they regulate their own emotions, even when they're frustrated, because they care more about how they fight than just being right. They ask clarifying questions. They slow things down if it's getting heated. They take accountability for their part. And when things go sideways, because let's be honest, they will sometimes, They come back with humility, not blame. The repair matters just as much as the rupture. What makes this approach so powerful is that it builds trust. When you know you can bring up a hard topic without it turning into a war zone, you're more likely to be honest, and your relationship becomes more emotionally transparent. You don't have to suppress how you feel just to keep the peace. You know the other person won't abandon the conversation or you when it gets uncomfortable. That kind of emotional availability doesn't avoid conflict. It learns how to handle it with care. And in doing so, it creates a safe, stable foundation where both people can be fully seen, even in the messy moments. In the early stages of dating, it's easy to be swept away by someone's ability to impress. The romantic gestures, the clever texts, the curated charm. It can feel intoxicating. But emotionally available love isn't about the highlight reel. It's not about who can say the right thing or play the part of the perfect partner. It's about presence, emotional availability in real time, when no one's performing, when life isn't filtered, and when being present is harder than being impressive. An emotionally available person shows you their real self, and, more importantly, they stay engaged when things get real. Performance fades over time. Presence deepens. Someone who is emotionally available knows that love isn't a stage show, it's a daily practice. They don't just tell you what you want to hear to win you over, they show up fully, even when there's nothing glamorous about it. When you're struggling, they're not looking for the fastest exit. When you're quiet, they don't fill the silence with noise or distance. They ask if you're okay. Their love doesn't disappear when your makeup's off, when you're irritable, or when life gets heavy. Their attention isn't a reward for your perfection. It's rooted in genuine care. Emotionally available people aren't obsessed with how love looks. They care how it feels. They don't need constant admiration or applause for doing the basics of showing up and being kind. You don't feel like you're on a stage trying to win their approval or affection. In fact, their presence creates space for you to be real too. You can exhale. You can have off days. You don't feel the need to edit yourself to stay lovable because their connection with you isn't based on performance. It's based on emotional truth. And that makes you feel deeply known, not just desired. There's a grounded energy to emotionally available love. It's not chaotic, not full of highs followed by confusing disappearances. Instead of craving attention, they offer presence, listening, eye contact, empathy, attunement. They don't need to be the center of your world or the star of the show. They just want to be with you in real connection without ego in the way. That's what separates presence from performance. One seeks validation, the other creates intimacy. When someone loves with presence, you don't just feel seen, you feel met. And that kind of love isn't loud, it's steady, safe, and transformative. So often, we're taught to chase chemistry, butterflies, and fireworks, but we forget that real love is built in the quiet moments. It's not just in the rush of passion, but in the steady presence of someone who shows up, listens deeply, takes accountability, and makes room for both your heart and your humanity. Emotionally available love isn't about perfection, it's about consistency, safety, growth. It's about being with someone who doesn't make you audition for affection or feel like you're too much when you're simply being real. The truth is, love should never feel like a game of emotional hide and seek. You shouldn't be stuck decoding mixed signals or settling for breadcrumbs of effort. When someone is emotionally available, love feels clear, not confusing. You're not constantly wondering where you stand because they make it known, not with grand promises, but with small daily actions that say, I'm here, I'm present, and I choose you, not just when it's easy, but always. And if you've never experienced that kind of love before, let this be your reminder. It exists. But more importantly, you deserve it. You deserve the kind of love that doesn't just recognize your worth, it matches it. So don't settle for potential. Don't stay in dynamics that reward your silence but punish your truth. Start choosing relationships and people who are emotionally available, not just emotionally intent, because the kind of love that lasts isn't built on pressure or performance. It's built on presence, partnership, and peace.